Chapter 14. For the next half hour, they haggled over the details. The air was thick with tension, and the exchanges between the detectives and Theo's parents were testy. It was finally agreed that the Boones would not enter their home until 5 p.m. that afternoon, at which time they would meet the detectives and other officers who would conduct their search. The only words Theo could muster were, "It's a waste of time. There's nothing there." Both parents told him to be quiet. After Hamilton and Vorman left and Theo could finally speak, he reassured his parents that he was not involved in the crime in any way and that a search was a waste of time. All three were stunned by the turn of events. Theo had never seen his parents so confused and even frightened. They agreed that they could seek the advice of a criminal defense lawyer, a friend, and Miss Boone left the conference room to make a call. At 2 p.m., Mr. Boone drove Theo back to the school, where they met with Miss Gladwell. Theo apologized for fighting. Mr. Boone said he and Miss Boone understood the decision to suspend Theo and had no problems with it. They were disappointed, of course, but supported Miss Gladwell. Afterward, Theo got his bike, found his tires unslashed, and rode back to the office. His parents were busy with clients and urgent legal matters. They closed their doors and seemed to forget about Theo. Elsa, Vince, and Dorothy were also preoccupied with piles of paperwork that were far more fascinating than chatting with a 13-year-old. Or perhaps Theo was being too sensitive. He and Judge finally retreated to his office, where he attempted to plow through some homework. Nothing happened. He couldn't take his mind off Spike Hawk, a kid who lived one block away who was caught selling drugs in the ninth grade and spent 18 very unpleasant months in a juvenile detention center 200 miles away. Though Theo did not know Spike and had never spoken to him, he had heard many stories of his life behind chain link fencing and razor wire. Gangs, beatings, cruel guards, and a long, ugly list. Spike never got his act together and fell back into the street life. Theo had been in court when Spike, at the age of 17, was sentenced as an adult for 20 years in prison for a multitude of crimes. Spike testified, begged for mercy, and blamed his troubles on the bad conditions he endured in the juvenile detention center. Spike was a tough kid from the streets. Theo was not. Theo was a nice kid from a good family, a Boy Scout, a student with plenty of friends. How was he supposed to survive locked away with gang members and tough guys? Separated from his parents, his friends, Judge. He was overwhelmed with fear and couldn't think of nothing else. He stretched out on Judge's little bed and, fortunately, fell asleep beside his dog. A beeping cell phone awakened him. It was April Finnemore. "Theo, where are you?" she asked nervously. "At the office," he said, jumping to his feet. "What's up?" "I'm in animal court with my mom and Miss Petunia. We need your help." "I think I'm sort of confined right now." "Come on, Theo. We're really scared and need you. It won't take long." "I didn't say I would help this woman." "I know, Theo. I know. But she's really upset and needs a friend. Please, Theo. She can't afford a real lawyer, and, well, she's been crying for the past hour. Please." Theo thought for a second. No one had specifically ordered him to remain at the office. Everyone else was super busy and probably wouldn't miss him. "Okay," he said, and slapped his phone shut. "Stay here, Judge," he said, then eased out of the back door, ran around to the front of the building, quietly got on his bike off the porch. 10 minutes later, he was parking at the bike rack in front of the courthouse. Miss Petunia grew flowers and herbs in the yard behind the small cottage just outside the city limits of Strattonburg. Every Saturday morning from March through October, she hauled the plants to the city's farmers market in Levi Park near the river. There, she joined dozens of farmers, gardeners, florists, fishermen, dairymen, producers, and other vendors who displayed their goods in booths that were arranged in neat rows on small patches of land that were carefully divided and regulated. Because Miss Petunia had been selling her flowers and herbs for many years, she had perhaps the best booth, one next to the entrance to the market. Next door to her was the booth run by May Fenimore, April's eccentric mother, who made and sold goat cheese. Miss Petunia was pretty weird, too, and naturally the woman had become close friends over the years. The market was wildly popular in Strattonburg, and on a bright Saturday morning half the town could be there. Virtually anything edible could be found. Crispino's Tortilla Hut was all-time favorite, with a long line forming by 10 a.m. Martha Lou sold her world-famous ginger cookies by the pound, and noise attracted a mob. Many of the vendors relied on the market to show a profit for the year, and there was a waiting list for those wanting booths. Because Miss Boone spent a little time in the kitchen, the family was not attracted to the market. Theo and his father played 18 holes of golf on Saturday mornings, teeing off at 9 and having lunch at 1. To Theo, this was far more important than buying tomatoes and veggie burgers. Miss Petunia was having trouble with the law because of her beloved pet llama, Lucy. April had mentioned the matter to Theo the day before during lunch, but he had been too preoccupied with his own troubles to worry about Miss Petunia's. At April's request, though, he had done some research into the city's laws and ordinances. He had passed this along to April and considered the matter closed, as far as he was concerned. Certain that he was already a marked man at the subject of gossip all over town, and especially around the courthouse. Theo entered through a side door and hustled down the back stairway. Animal Court was in the basement, a fitting place for the lowest court in the town. Real lawyers tried to avoid it. People with complaints could act as their own lawyers, and that's what attracted Theo to it. On most days, anyway. Today, though, Theo was not excited about making an appearance in court. For the first time in his life, the word court meant a place to be avoided. He entered the door for Animal Court and walked inside. There was a dusty aisle down the middle of the room, with folding chairs on both sides. To his right, Theo saw April, her mother, May, and a third person he assumed to be Miss Petunia. She had purple hair and round granny glasses with bright orange frames. April had described her as weirder than my mother. Theo sat down and began whispering with the women. Judge Yek was not in the bench. Across the aisle, several people were waiting. One was Buck Bolin, or Buck Bologna, as he was better known, and he was wearing his standard tight-fitting dark brown uniform, one issued by All Pro Security. Buck wore the uniform everywhere, on duty or off, and he had been wearing it last Monday morning when he stopped Theo as he cut across his backyard. He had grabbed Theo's bike and threatened him. Earlier, he had a rock thrown at Theo, and now Buck glared across the aisle as if he would like to strangle him. Judge Yek's ancient clerk sat at the table in one corner, doing her crossword and trying to stay awake. After a few minutes, Judge Yek walked through the door behind his bench and said, "Remain seated." No one had attempted to stand. Formalities were dispensed with in Animal Court, also known as Kitty Court. The judge was wearing his usual outfits: jeans, combat boots, no tie, an old sports coat, and he conducted himself with his usual disdain for his job. He had once been in a law firm, but couldn't keep a job. He ran Animal Court because no one else would do it. Well, he began with a smile. It's Mr. Boone again. Theo stood and said, "Hello, Judge. Always nice to see you. And you? Who's your client?" Miss Petunia Plankmore, the owner of the animal. Judge Yek looked at the papers, then looked at Buck Bologna. "And who's Mr. Bolin?" "That's me," Buck said. "Very well. The parties can come forward and we'll try to work things out." Theo knew the routine, and he and Miss Petunia stepped through the small gate in the bar and took a seat at the table closer to the judge. Buck followed them and sat as far away as possible. When they were in place, Judge Yek said, "Mr. Bolin, you have filed this complaint against Miss Petunia. You go first. Keep your seat and tell us what happened." Buck looked around nervously, then plunged in. "Well, Judge, I work for All Pro Security, and we have contract for the farmers market." Why are you wearing a gun? The judge asked. I'm a security guard. I don't care. And I have a permit. I don't care. And I don't allow guns in my courtroom. Please remove it. Buck grabbed his holster and snapped it off his belt. He placed it and the gun inside on the table. Up here, Judge Jeck said, pointing to a spot on the bench. Buck awkwardly stepped forward and placed the gun right where he was told. It was a very large pistol. Now go on, Yeck said, when Buck returned to his seat. And so, anyway, that's my job to provide security at a farmer's market. There are two of us, me and Frankie. He works the west end, and I watch the front. Been doing it for a few months. And Miss Petunia here has a booth near the front entrance where she sells flowers and herbs, and right next to her booth is a small open area where she keeps her llama. Would that be Lucy? Judge Yeck added. Yes, sir. 2 Saturdays ago, I was walking by her booth, same as always, just doing my job. You know, when this llama walks up and stares at me. We're about on the same eye level, me and the llama, and at first I thought she might try to kiss me. The llama kisses people? Judge Yeck interrupted. He's a very sweet llama, loves people, or most people, Miss Petunia blurted. Judge Yeck looked at her and politely but firmly said, You'll get your chance in a moment. Please do not interrupt. Sorry, Judge. Continue. Buck sucked his ample gut and went on. Yes, sir, the llama kisses people, especially little kids. Kinda gross if you ask me, but there's usually some folks hanging around to get a better look at the llama, and occasionally she'll sort of lean down and kiss one of them. Okay, we've established that Lucy the llama likes to kiss people. Now move on. Yes, sir. Like I said, the llama walked up to me. We stared at each other for a few seconds. Then the llama raised her nose straight up, which means she's not happy. Then she sort of cocked back her head and spit in my face. A lot of spit, too, not just a couple of drops. It was gross, sticky, and smelly. The llama spits at people? Judge Yeck asked, amused. Oh, yes, Judge, and she did it with real quick like, and had no idea what was coming. April's mother, May Fenimore, was a loud woman with rough manners who could be counted on to do the wrong thing. She laughed and made no effort to conceal it. That's enough, Judge Yeck said sternly, though he himself seemed to be ready to chuckle. Please continue, Mr. Bolin. Got it. There are some kids watching, and I think they knew this llama was a spitter. And as soon as she spit in my face, the kids cracked up laughing. It was very embarrassing, and it made me mad. So after I wiped my face off, I walked over to Miss Petunia and told her what happened. She said, Well, Lucy doesn't like you. And I said, I don't care if she likes me or not. She can't be spitting at people, especially security personnel. She didn't apologize or anything. In fact, I think she thought it was funny. Is this llama on a leash or confined in some way? Judge Yeck asked. No, sir, it's not. It just sort of hangs around Miss Petunia's booth. There are always some kids petting it and making a fuss. So we decided the matter for a few minutes, and I realized the owner was not going to do anything about it. So I decided to walk away, to cool off, and to wash my face. But I kept an eye on the llama, and I think she kept an eye on me. Part of my job is to watch the front entrance. Sometimes people will try and leave with stuff they haven't paid for, so I gotta keep an honest. You know what I mean, Judge? Of course. And so anyway, about half an hour later, I'm doing my job, and I walk past her booth again. Didn't say a word to her or to the llama. I stopped and I was talking to Mr. Dudley Bishop, and I felt something behind me. He stopped talking. I turned around and there was the llama again, staring at me. Before I could back away, she spit in my face for the second time. It was just as gross as the first time. Dudley is here as my witness. From a folding chair in the audience, Mr. Dudley Bishop raised his hand. Is this all true, Mr. Bishop? The judge asked. Every word of it, the witness replied. Continue. Well, I was pretty upset People were laughing at me and everything, so I wiped my face off and went over to Miss Petunia. She had seen it happen and she was not at all concerned. She told me to stay away from the llama and things would be fine. I explained that I had the right to do my job and the problem was hers, not mine. Do something with her lousy llama, but she refused. I cooled off again and tried to keep my distance. If I got close to the entrance, the llama would stop whatever it was doing and give me a dirty look. I talked to Frankie about it and suggested we swap places for the rest of the morning, but he wanted no part of the llama. He said I should call animal control, which I did. The officer came out and had a chat with Miss Petunia. She said there was no city ordinance requiring llamas to be on a leash or confined in some way, and the animal control officer agreed with her. I guess it's okay for llamas to roam the city at will, spitting at people. I didn't realize this was a problem in Strattonburg, Judge Eck observed. Well, it is now, and there's more to this story, Judge. Continue. Well, last Saturday it happened again, only worse. I was keeping my distance from the animal, doing my job as best as I could, trying to avoid it and not even making eye contact. I didn't say a word to Miss Petunia or anybody else around there. The other lady there, Miss Finnemore, had this booth next to the flower stall where she sells goat cheese, and she has this spider monkey who hangs around, attracting customers and increasing sales, I think. What does the monkey have to do with the llama? I'll tell you. Sometimes the monkey will sit on the llama's back, sort of ride it around, and this always gets a lot of attention. Kids hang around and take pictures. Some of the parents even take photos of their kids posing with the llama and the monkey. Well, this one little girl got scared and started screaming. I walked over, and as soon as the llama saw me, she bolted and ran at me. I didn't get within 30 feet of her, but she attacked anyway. I didn't want to get spit on again, so I moved back. She kept coming, with the monkey hanging on like some cowboy. When I realized the llama meant business, I turned around and started running. The faster I ran, the faster the llama ran. I could hear the monkey squealing, having fun, I guess. This was about 8 o'clock, so the market was packed, and everyone was laughing. I didn't know if the thing would bite or whatever. I thought about grabbing my gun and defending myself, but there were too many people around. Plus, I didn't want to kill the llama. We ran up and down the aisles all over the market. People were laughing. The monkey was squealing. It was awful. Judge Jack raised a file to partially cover his face and hide the fact that he was about to burst out laughing. Theo glanced around the room and everyone was amused. It's not funny, Judge, Buck said. Continue. Well, it all came to an end when I fell down. I stumbled in front of the Butch Tucker's watermelon stand, and before I could get up, the llama bent down and spit at me. It missed my face, but got my shirt wet. Butch is here if you want to verify this. Butch raised his hand. It's all true, Judge. I was there, he said with a grinning face. Thank you. Continue, please. Buck was breathing hard, and his face was turned red. He said, well, I finally got to my feet, and I was ready to slug the llama, and maybe the monkey too, when Frankie came running up with a stick and shooed the llama away. I guess it went back to its spot. I don't know. I was too upset. You got to do something, Judge. I have the right to do my job without being attacked. Anything more? I guess not. That's all for now. Any cross-examination, Mr. Boone? Theo decided it would be best for his client to tell her the side of the story. He knew from experience that Judge Jack did not like usual courtroom procedures. Let's hear from Miss Petunia, he said. A good idea. Miss Petunia, please give us your version. Miss Petunia jumped to her feet, ready to defend Lucy. You can keep your seat, the judge said. I prefer to stand, she said. Then please stand. Thank you, Judge. All of what he said is true, but he left out a few things. Llamas spit when they feel threatened or harassed, and they do so as a means of defense, to protect themselves. They don't bite and they don't kick. They are very peaceful animals who have been around for thousands of years. They're from the same family as the camel. Did you know that, Judge? I did not. Well, they are, and they're hardworking, loyal, and easy to care for. I've had Lucy for 12 years, and she pulls my wagon to the market every Saturday morning at sunrise. My car is tiny, and I can't use it to haul my flowers and herbs, so Lucy does it for me. Judge Jack held up a hand, but looked at Theo and asked, "Is it legal for a llama to pull a wagon on city streets?" Theo replied, "Yes, sir. There's no ordinance against it." "Where does this llama live?" "In my backyard," Miss Petunia said. "I have a big backyard." "Does the city allow llamas to be kept at private homes?" Theo replied, "No, Your Honor. However, Miss Petunia does not live in the city. Her home is just outside the city limits in the county, and the county does not prohibit a llama from living in her backyard." "Thank you, Counselor. Please continue, Miss Petunia." "A few months ago, Lucy and I were going home after the market was over, and we were stopped by a patrol car. Two policemen got out and started asking questions. They accused us of blocking traffic and other nonsense, but I think they were just curious. It really upset Lucy. She felt threatened." "Does he spit on them?" Judge Jack asked. "No, sir." "How often does he spit on people?" "It rarely happens, Judge. About a year ago, the guy who reads the electric meters came around the house, and you wouldn't leave her alone. She got him. He was wearing a uniform of sorts. You see, Judge, I don't think Lucy likes large men in uniforms. She feels threatened by them. She never spat at a woman or child, or a man who is not in uniform. A gold star for her. And Mr. Bolin here has not been that kind to her. He stopped by several times, throwing his weight around, trying to tell me that Lucy needed to be on a leash or kept in a certain place, stuff like that. He thinks he's in charge of the entire market. He gets part of the blame for this." "That's not true, Your Honor," Buck said. However, anyone who watched Buck in uniform knew immediately that he was proud of his authority. "We're not going to bicker. Are you finished, Miss Petunia?" "I guess. All right, Mr. Bolin, what exactly do you want me to do?" "Well, Judge, I think she should keep her llama at home, in the backyard, where it can spit on people or attack them where it can't spit on people or attack them in public." Theo said, "But Judge, she has to get her flowers and herbs to the market, and there's no law against using her llama to pull the wagon. It would be unfair to require my client to keep Lucy at home." "Maybe, but something must be done, Mr. Boone," Judge X said. "We can't allow an animal like this to spit on people. Mr. Bolin has the right to do his job without the fear of being assaulted by a llama. Do you agree, Mr. Boone?" "Yes, I do, and on behalf of my client, I offer an apology to Mr. Bolin for Lucy's actions." Apologies meant a lot to Judge Yak, and Theo had insisted that they offer one. Miss Petunia was against the idea, but Theo prevailed. Buck nodded his acceptance, but was not satisfied. "You got a plan, Mr. Boone?" Judge Yak asked. Theo stood and addressed the judge. "Let's try this. Next Saturday morning, Mr. Bolin here swaps places with the other guard, Frankie, and Frankie is instructed to stay as far away from Lucy as possible and still do his job. If Lucy goes after Frankie, then we'll agree to take the more drastic measures, such as, Your Honor, Lucy has never been on a leash, but my client will give it a try. Miss Petunia feels confident that she can talk to Lucy about this and convince her not to be so aggressive with large men in uniforms." "How big is Frankie?" Judge X asked Buck. "It's a shrimp." Miss Petunia talks to Lucy. Judge X asked Theo. Miss Petunia stood too and said, "Oh, yes, Judge. We chat all the time. Lucy is very intelligent. I think I can convince her to stop spitting." "Mr. Bolin, what do you think of this idea?" Buck realized he was not getting what he wanted, not on this day anyway, so he shrugged and said, "I'll give it a try. I'm not looking for trouble, Judge, but it's pretty embarrassing." "I'm sure it is. We'll proceed with the plan, and if it doesn't work, we'll be back here next week. Agreed?" Everyone agreed and nodded along. "Animal court is adjourned," Judge X said. And that's the end of chapter 14.